8.5 pleased with the inclusion of Arsenal's Emile Smith Rowe in England's senior squad for the first time ahead of World Cup qualifiers with Albania and San Marino over the next week or so. Ahead of, in my personal view, some rather redundant qualifiers, Smith Rowe's inclusion has got me interested, Danny. He's been excellent of late for Arsenal. He's been a real threat. He's been a source of creativity. It's good to see him in, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. I think he's done well. Obviously, there's one or two injuries, and he's been involved obviously in the under-21s before, and he gets a chance. He gets an opportunity for Gareth to see him in that situation, how he fits into the senior squad, how does he settle in? Is he overawed by it? Does he just go, well, you know what? Yeah, loving this. Get straight in, get stuck into it. So yeah, I think it's an opportunity just to have a look at him. And a reward for a player that's doing well. He
settled into Arsenal's setup well, and his influence on Mikel Arteta's Arsenal's growing all the time, isn't it? Particularly in the final third, in one of those roles off the front man, maybe off the left-hand side or in the 10 position. He offers different options, doesn't he?
He's doing great, but let's not get carried away. He had quite a few maybe cameo appearances last season. Didn't have too many starts, did he? Did okay. When he came in, a lot of that was Europa League in sort of the early stages. This season, he's had a handful of good games.
But what I will say, Danny, on that is when Arsenal have faltered, Saka and Smith Rowe were the players standing up. In an average Arsenal team, it was Smith Rowe and Saka trying to be brave.
Yeah, but sometimes that's easy when you have that naivety, or easier when you have that naivety and you don't have the baggage previously. All I'm trying to say is, yes, he's doing great, but let's not get carried away. We've seen this before with the likes of Oxlade-Chamberlain, bursted onto the scene. When he sort of first got called up, and then obviously went real tough time with injuries, etc. Ross Barkley. Never really lived up to that. Loftus-Cheek. We've seen plenty of players have 5 or 6 good games, get drafted in, and then for whatever reason it doesn't quite happen. I'm not saying that's going to happen with him, but once upon a time you had to have at least half a season, maybe a season before you got recognised for England. Now it's 4 or 5 games, and people have said, "Oh yeah, he needs to be in the England team."
Quickly in 4 or 5 games, taken his performance level to the next level, Danny.
Better than who in that England squad?
In the 10 positions, he's playing
better than Phil Foden
right now.
So he's better than Phil Foden?
I think he's delivered over the last 5-6 games some better performances than Phil Foden.
Phil Foden's got man of the match, I think, 3 times in that. City have been on fire.
I think he offers a really good option in that area of the pitch. The level of performance right now in a good Arsenal team.
Similar position on the same, on the opposite side. Jack Grealish. Is he better than that? That Mason Mount. Okay, I know he's got 1 or 2 maybe injury problems with his wisdom teeth, whatever. Just because you're playing well doesn't automatically mean you get an England cap or you get in the England team. You've got to fit to a system, and you've got to be better than what's there already. I think that we sometimes seem to forget that. Jack Grealish might have had 1 or 2 not great performances for Manchester City. It doesn't mean he's suddenly turned into a bad player. He's had a big move. You get that initial adrenaline spike and some great performances, and then it can just dip slightly. And then sometimes you need these international breaks as a little bit of a change as good as a rest, to go away, rejuvenate yourself, get a little bit more confidence, go back and suddenly be great again. So yes, he's a good player. He's a good prospect, but it's very, very early in his career yet to start saying, all right, yes, he needs to be in the England team. He's better than Phil Foden, which he's not.
I will say I only have absolute trust in Gareth Southgate. He makes the calls. I've got no reason to doubt the calls he's making with his squads as we build up to Qatar 2022, as I've touched on already. 4 points still needed to secure England's place at the next World Cup. But ahead of these games against Albania and San Marino, without being disrespectful to the opponents or the quality of them, where we find ourselves in the qualifying group as well, why no Fikayo Tomori, Ben White, Ezri Konsa? Crystal Palace's Conor Gallagher, one on Gallagher, who, for me, at 21 years of age, is looking fantastic right now. And if he's not getting a chance now, Danny, when will he get a chance?
Again, he's had 4 or 5 good games.
It only takes 4 or 5 games to realise how special a talent he is.
No, it doesn't. It's a lot more than that.
He'll be playing for Chelsea next season.
That's next season. That's 30 games away at least. 50 games in a Premier League team until you can say you're a Premier League player. Because up to that point, you can dip away very, very easily. We were all talking about Mason Greenwood going to be the next Manchester United number 9 only, 18 months ago or a year ago. What's happened?
But we want to pick form players, don't we? And Conor Gallagher is a form player in the Premier League at this moment in time.
Yeah, but you can't just pick players on form because they don't fit into a system. If you were just picking players on form, it'd be a scattergun approach. And just go, and the team would be different every single time. Who does he replace in that team? Is he more reliable, better than Mason Mount? No, is the answer. He's 21, he's got plenty of time. You don't win. The team that wins a tournament, average age, 26, 27. I
guess my point would be, does Mason Mount, for example, need to be playing in this squad?
Yeah, because the problem that you have is there are very few internationals between now and
November.
The World Cup.
Yeah.
That's the problem that you have. The England squad is young. It hasn't... There aren't players in there with 50, 60, 70 caps, but Jordan Henderson, and Harry Kane are the only sort of 2 in there, maybe Raheem Sterling. That's it. It's not littered with experience. So these players have to get used to playing with each other. And that doesn't matter if that's against San Marino or Albania or Liechtenstein, whoever it might be that we consider easy opponents. They've got to get used to playing in a certain way because you're not going to be playing these in tournaments. You're not going to be playing Albania or San Marino in the quarterfinals.
But you're all right walking away from these games and saying, we learnt nothing new.
But you're not going to learn anything. I could play against San Marino.
We were trying to arrange a talkSPORT versus San Marino
that's you can carry one player. What are you going to learn from that? Absolutely zero, because they're going to have 20% possession at best. You might as well. You'd be better off playing against the under-20. The under-21s would be a more competitive game for England. You'd learn more in that. That's always. So you bring 1 or 2 players in just to see how they deal with the surroundings. Because playing against Albania and playing against San Marino, you're not going to learn anything from that. If you win 3-0, if you win 5, and if you win 7-0, what? Okay, we know Smith Rowe is a good player. We know he can score. We know Conor Gallagher can score against San Marino. It's irrelevant. Absolutely irrelevant. So actually, is it better to play the team that you might be playing in the important games, of course, so they get used to those pairings, they get used to those partnerships? I think that's way more important.
Experience in Jordan Henderson, a greater number of caps than most of that midfield put together.
Exactly. That's
so
my
is
point.
He the one? Does he still have a role?
Without a doubt. You can't just go all youngsters. You've got to look at any good team. It's a mix of old and young, of experience and youth, and all these types of things. He will guide players through. He will set standards in training. And that's what Gareth wants to have, a culture. So go back to what the All Blacks did. They didn't just go, right, these players are a little bit too old now, we'll bin them. They kept the likes of Dan Carter around for a long time.
Help with the transition.
Of course, because they learn from that. And even if they're not playing, they learn from how they deal with the pressure.
Who was the best you played with?
Loads of players, but they're all senior.
Yeah.
They're all old. Or older, for football. Towards Teddy Sheringham was brilliant. Teddy was 35, still in the England squad,
still setting standards.
Yeah, at that stage. Martin Keown was there. Gareth was there himself. Neither of those played in 2002, but they were around because they teach and they lend that experience to the young players coming through. I don't think people sometimes understand that the difference in going from an under-21 player and a Premier League player to suddenly becoming an England player. The pressures are so different. The media that you have to do, everything gets ramped up massively. And sometimes just watching how other players deal with that, watching how Jordan Henderson conducts himself, speaks to other people, deals with those situations, that's invaluable learning. Plus, he's still a good player. And if you need him, he will be around.